Sure, I move that we consider the budget of the state universities and colleges led by the presidents of various state universities, and President Ronquillo is here. The budget of Commission on Higher Education, and we'd like to acknowledge the presence of its officials led by Chairperson Prospero de Vera III. And we now would like to recognize the sponsor of the measure, the distinguished lady from the city of Taguig and Patero, Senator Pia Cayetano, and to interpellate our Deputy Minority Leader, Senator Risa Ontiveros. I so move, Mr. President.
The consideration of the budget of the state universities and colleges and the Commission on Higher Education, led by Chairperson Prospero de Vera III, is now in order. At this point, Senators Pia Cayetano and Risa Ontiveros are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I am ready to sponsor the budget of the Commission on Higher Education with a total new appropriation of 47,057,007,000 pesos. The State University and Colleges with a total new appropriation of 106,489,000,000 and 883,000 pesos. And the University of the Philippines System with total new appropriation of 23,557,000,000 and 426,000 pesos. Mr. President, in the past years, it has been our intention to make the budget for higher education sustainable but also resilient to future challenges, all while considering intergenerational fairness. I extend my gratitude to Senator Angara, the Chairman of the Committee on Finance, for wholeheartedly supporting the amendments and the recommendation we make. Mr. President, before we start, I would just like to start off on a light note. Recently, UP ranked the highest among the university in the country at 404th place in the QS World University. This is Asia. Asia yun, di ba? Hindi to QS World University Asia. Hindi to Asia version. World talaga. Tama? Okay, so yung QS World University Ranking 2024, 404th place, and then 78 in Asia. Okay. For the world ranking, this is an improvement of its 412th spot for 2023. Followed by, and I'm looking at the majority floor leader, followed by two private schools, Ateneo de Manila University, ranked 563. Walang Ateneo graduate on the floor. Meron, over there. I didn't see you standing there. Okay. Our Deputy Minority Floor Leader. 400, teka, nasa na yung binabasa ko? 563rd place, followed by De La Salle University. Yun ang wala on the floor at the moment. At 681 to 690 bracket. And University of Santo Tomas at 801 to 850. Okay. And then joining the top 4 schools is the University of San Carlos in Cebu City, which made it to the 1,201 to the 1,400 bracket. But, Mr. President, what I'd also like to point out is this. We are mindful of a news article that was published around July of this year saying that according to a leading online job portal, JobStreet, PUP is the top educational institution preferred by employers in the Philippines, with UP coming in second. I would just like to commend PUP. It receives, Mr. President, the lowest subsidy at 12 pesos per unit. So kung hindi pa ba kahanga-hanga na despite the low subsidy and because of the moratorium on increase, although that increase will really be a government expense, to be clear, no? Because nga of our law, they continue to hold this ranking among the employers. And that's what matters because employers eventually, kahit anong pang award na ibigay mo, kung hindi yan hireable, hindi yan hireable. Apparently, they are very desirable in the, as far as the employers are concerned. So clearly, they are producing excellent graduates and becoming valuable members of our workforce. Congratulations to the students, officials, and faculty and staff. Andito ba yung presidente ng PUP? President Muhi, siya pa. Tayo po kayo dyan. Okay. Anyway.
Mr. President, distinguished colleague, may I also would like to acknowledge also our good friend UP President Angelo Jimenez is here with us, and our good friend the GM of PGH, Dr. Gap Legaspi. Mr. President, I move for the previous motion.
Yes, there is a current motion. Are there any objections? There being none, motion is approved.
We are ready, Mr. President, and we welcome the questions of the Deputy Minority Leader.
Thank you, good sponsor. Salamat din po, Mr. President, at magandang gabi po sa ating lahat. Allow me just a few seconds to congratulate the University of the Philippines for beating my alma mater in the second game of the UAAP. I was proud of our team and also very impressed with the UP team. It was a great fight. Sorry to the majority leader.
Mabigat.
I apologize. And I'm glad that the president of the Polytechnic University of the Philippines is here na bilib na po ako sa kanila mula pa nung panahon ng the late great president in the 1980s, in the late 1980s. The great Doc Nemesio Prudente. So, good sponsor, I'd like to ask questions about the Commission on Higher Education. Unang-una na po about marine education. According to a news report in April, it stated that CHED has plans to implement an enhanced curriculum for maritime students in the coming school year. There were also plans to monitor the maritime schools in terms of their possession of the necessary equipment to satisfy the standards of EMSA or the European Maritime Safety Agency. Pwede po bang mag-present ang good sponsor ng updates tungkol dito?
Mr. President, I'm just awaiting the response of CHED. Per hour. All agency maritime schools are the new curriculum will be implemented this school year. So this coming August pa tayo? Nag-implement na. So when you say it's being evaluated, what may matatanggal, may masasara? It was a commitment. Okay. No new. Okay. Mr. President, in compliance with the ENSA requirements, all 83 maritime schools are currently being re-evaluated. And I asked what this means, if it's possible that there would be closures. That is always a possibility, Mr. President, if they cannot comply. Of course, we will give support where we can, because the objective is to allow them to provide the education that we need for our maritime students. And then the new curriculum is already being implemented this school year. And for the information of the Deputy Minority Leader, there is a 5-year moratorium on the opening of any new maritime school.
Thank you, good sponsor. Any updates po tungkol doon naman sa pagkakaroon nitong mga maritime schools ng kinakailangang equipment? So bukod po doon sa bagong curriculum, yung kinakailangang equipment.
Oo. Yan ho ay makikita sa evaluation. So in the process din po tayo na alamin kung ano ang mga pangangailangan ng bawat eskwelahan po.
Alright, maraming salamat, good sponsor. I'm sure aabangan ng marami sa atin dito sa Senado yung resulta nung kanilang evaluation. Sana hindi masyadong marami ang maisasara, pero kung ilan ang kailangang isara dahil hindi tumutupad sa standards, hindi lang ng EMSA, pero ng CHED, umaasa naman ako na magiging daan ito na maitaas at ma-maintain yung quality ng enhanced curriculum at pagpapatupad nito at pati yung pagkakaroon ng kinakailangang equipment ng lahat ng mga maritime schools na magpapatuloy sa kanilang operasyon.
Sorry, was there a question?
No,
the chairman was talking to me. I apologize.
It's all right. Good
It
sponsor.
was a statement, no? It was
Yes,
a
it was a
statement.
statement anticipating the
The
receipt of a
evaluation.
copy of
Yes,
the
opo.
evaluation.
Actually, for your information, mga 2 to 3 years pa daw po.
Oh, all right.
So it will not be in the mail soon.
Kung ganon, good sponsor, baka the CHED could just do the Senate the kindness of maybe updating us every year kahit sa ganito mga budget plenaries natin. Kumusta na po yung progress ng evaluation na yun? Ano yung mga lumalabas na mahalagang findings nila at posibleng namumuong mga rekomendasyon for the end of evaluation report. Baka kahit ganun lamang po.
Yes. And if I may suggest, I'll just make my suggestion public already. Yung grabe na yung reports, kailangan i-prioritize yun. Kung kailangan isara, sayang oras ng estudyante at sayang pera ng magulang at ng gobyerno, di ba?
At saka good sponsor, mahalagang paalala, kaugnay din nung kapapasa nating ng Senate version ng Magna Carta of Seafarers.
Yes.
Dahil pati po yung seafarers, bukod po sa kanilang kasalukuyang working conditions, tapos yung inaasahan nilang maayos na benepisyo hanggang sa pag nagretiro na sila, unang-unang concern talaga nila ay yung dami at kalidad ng mga maritime schools na kanilang pinagdadaanan. Salamat, good sponsor.
Okay. Yes.
Thank you, good sponsor. Ngayon dako naman po ako sa mga tanong tungkol sa mga commissioners ng CHED. I received a copy of the memorandum issued by Chair De Vera, magandang gabi din po, Chair, concerning the proper decorum of chair designates in the governing boards of state universities and colleges. Since the last budget hearing, my office has continued to receive correspondence from stakeholders concerning 2 commissioners in particular. Pwede po bang i-inform tayo ng chair kung nagkaroon ng mga internal investigations sa CHED para i-check yung compliance, particular na mga commissioners na ito sa memorandum ng chair?
Mr. President, the CHED has forwarded the complaints to the Office of the President, but I recall during the hearing, this matter was taken up, and Chairman Popoy De Vera issued a memorandum detailing the proper decorum. The chair designate should observe as chair of each meeting that it oversees, and CHED is monitoring compliance. Any further violation will result in CHED replacing the concerned chair immediately. This was Chairman De Vera's statement during the hearing. So, is there anything else you want to add? Yeah, I know. Pero wala pang action si OP. Pero kahit na, ha? Pero kahit na, you still have ano. Mr. President, I'd just like to put on record that during the hearing, we also manifested that as chairman, the chairman has the power, no, to remove the chairperson's designate because they are there on your behalf. Is that not correct? So, ang sinasabi po ni Chairman, yun nga, nag-issue ng memo and they are checking compliance, pero this representation firmly believes that if there were any wrongdoings in the past, they should act upon that.
Fully
Thank you.
agree, Madam Sponsor. Mabuti po at may nagawa na ang chair o ang buong CHED, finoward yung mga reklamo sa OP. Totoo, naglabas ng memorandum from the Office of the Chairperson on the proper decorum of commissioners as chairperson designates in the Governing Board of State Universities and Colleges, na yung huling talata dito ay yun na nga po, non-compliance with this memorandum will lead to revocation of your designation as chair-designate of concerned SUCs. At sabi nga po ng good sponsor, minomonitor ng CHED ang compliance ng mga commissioners sa memorandum na ito. Pero ang mga ito po ay nagawa na at tapos prospective moving forward. Pero kasalukuyan, bakit hindi pa po nagkaroon ng initiative yung chair, investigahan yung compliance sa memorandum, even of the recent past, considering na yung mga, lalo na yung mga akusasyon ay kaugnay na mga di umanong misuse ng public funds. So, wala po bang fact-finding sa ngayon, investigasyon, internal sa CHED?
Okay, sige. According to the chairperson, following due process, the persons, the commissioners who are charged or accused of wrongdoings have been asked to, given the opportunity to explain.
At kasabay po nitong given sila ng opportunity to explain, sa panig naman po ng CHED as a whole, wala bang fact-finding at investigasyon? Kasi hindi naman yung dalawang komisyonado lang ang dapat mabigyan ng pagkakataon magpaliwanag, pero yung ibang stakeholders at pati po yung mga nagmalasakit pang magreklamo, kasama ba sila sa isang mas malawak na investigasyon?
Well, Mr. President, the response is, yun nga, following due process, the accusations were made known to them and they were given the opportunity to respond. And from there, the chairman is saying that it's also the commission who will decide. Of course, they should inhibit themselves. That goes without saying. That's the direction that the chairman is going with, not a separate task force. When I ask him, pwede din ba mag-task force? Pwede din naman. So, but I guess the objective of the deputy minority floor leader is to have a fact-finding body, whether it's headed by the chair, the other commissioners, or some other body, that will come up with a fair and fair findings.
Certainly, a good sponsor, of course, the commission will decide, but this representation joins with the advice of the good sponsor na kung pwede namang mag-task force, bakit hindi? Because due process also requires due process both for the persons complained about at yung mga complainants. CHED itself deserves due process bilang isang institusyon. Baka pwede rin pong irekomenda na may preventive suspension ng mga komisyonado na ireklamo habang ongoing yung a form of investigation or fact-finding. Posible po ba yun?
Yes, Mr. President, the preventive suspension was already requested from Malacanang.
All right. So, mabuti naman po at salamat para sa impormasyon na iyon. Although I do wonder kung kailangan pang iangat hanggang sa OP, kung wala bang kapangyarihan yung commission itself to request that of their peers. Lalo na kung yung chair ang mag-request o hindi lang request ay oobligahin yung mga iimbestigahan na preventive suspension.
My understanding, Mr. President, is the chair can revoke, as His Honor read, no, dun sa memo, can revoke their standing as his designee. yun pwede niyang gawin. Pero yung suspension from that office, since that office was an appointment by Malacanang, then it's also Malacanang who can suspend or permanently remove them from the office.
All right, I understand then. Good sponsor. Okay, I'll accept that.
Siguro
for
dagdag na
now.
lang natin is the urgency of resolving this kasi
Opo.
we brought it up during the hearing and
Yes.
that was what, almost 2 months
Months
ago.
ago. Opo.
So siguro it's high time na ma-resolve na to para people know that it's being acted upon.
Salamat, good sponsor. Also for allaying yung medyo konting pagkalito ko na if the commission, through the chair especially, can actually, pending findings of an investigation, revoke the appointment of any commissioner to any governing board of a state college or university, bakit yung lesser action at status ng suspension kailangan pa sa OP? But if that's the way the CHED process goes at yung kanyang ugnayan sa OP sa ngayon, I will accept that for now. Good sponsor, Chair De Vera also mentioned, and the good sponsor also mentioned just earlier, that the chair submitted the complaints against the respective commissioners to the Office of the President. Meron po bang mga updates kaugnay nito?
Wala pa, no? Wala pa, Mr. President.
Alright. May inaasahan bang time frame ang CHED within which posibleng magkomento or tumugon sa pagsumite mula sa OP?
They're following it up with the executive secretary, but I hope the chairman would take this as a strong statement coming from the Senate. If we can speak on behalf of the senators, at least myself and the Deputy Minority Floor Leader, who firmly believes that the sooner this is acted upon, the sooner we can move on.
Yes.
And give clarity to the issue kasi either walang katotohanan at maayos na ulit yung kalagayan ng mga na-accuse o kaya totoo siya and we give the SUCs and their officers and their students the assurance that these kind of actions will not be tolerated.
Thank you so much, good sponsor. I fully join in that sentiment and in the hope expressed by the good sponsor. Further, my office received a document from the Civil Service Commission, a decision in 2019 that found Dr. Jo Mark M. Libre guilty of grave misconduct, serious dishonesty, falsification of official documents, and conduct prejudicial to the best interest of the service. One of the consequences of this decision was Dr. Libre's perpetual disqualification from holding public office. Informed po ba ang chair sa CSC decision tungkol kay Commissioner Libre?
So, Mr. President, I'm told that the status of this case is that there was an appeal filed by Commissioner Libre. So, if Civil Service Central will issue a decision dismissing said appeal, then CHED is duty-bound to implement it immediately. So again, for the sake of our listeners, there's a due process, principle of due process is involved. Pagka may appeal, then hindi pa nila ma-actionan, Mr. President.
I understand, good sponsor. Pero kung mayroon ng desisyon ng isang constitutional commission sa regional level nila, bagamat in-appeal ng subject commissioner, and totoo nga, iniintay ng CHED yung desisyon sa appeal na ito ng central nung Civil Service Commission, given the gravity of the CSC decision, kahit dun sa regional level, bakit in-entrust pa rin ng chair na maging chair designate yung subject commissioner sa governing boards ng 24 na state universities and colleges?
So, Mr. President, the chairman explained that because he's an appointee of the president, nandun pa din yung assumption of good faith and na he was complying with his duty. So hindi rin naman din daw niya tinanggal ang pagka chairman designate dun sa hinahawakan niyang mga SUCs, Mr. President.
So I understand, good sponsor, about any commissioner of the CHED, no, at least being an appointee of the president. Pero siguro naman, hindi lang in terms of human nature, pero in terms of yung pagganap natin ng ating mga responsibilidad bilang mga nagtatrabaho sa gobyerno, ang isang desisyon ng isang commission on Civil Service Commission, kahit sa regional level, hindi pa nadesisyonan ng isang appeal sa central, medyo strains the assumption of good faith, or at least should give us pause. Kahit paano, siguro may konting timbang when we are considering adding to the position and the mandate of a subject commissioner. Hindi po kaunti ang 2 dosenang state universities and college para maging chair designate sa governing boards nun yung subject commissioner. So I hope the good sponsor will forgive this representation for pushing the point, pero gusto
No,
ko lang
I
din
support the deputy
Salamat
minorities
po. Good
pushing the point.
Thank you,
Because
good
I was
sponsor.
clarifying the facts so that people who are following this story can also understand. Yung civil service case na final is a different case. Hindi ito tungkol dun sa iniimbestigahan ngayon ng CHED and well, whether it's a task force nga or whatever body on his conduct as a commissioner. The case in the Civil Service Commission is on his actions as a SUC professor. So that's why I really don't mind, and I support the deputy minority leaders pushing the point, because if these are two separate incidents, and take note that the incident, the case before the chairman now is not one incident. It's numerous incidents as chairman, as a commissioner. And then yung isa naman as SUC professor. So we must push the point, because if that is needed for the chairman to also act and do whatever he can on his part, then we will put some pressure on that, Mr. President.
Thank you so much, good sponsor. I really appreciate the solidarity, at least in trying to get to the bottom of things. Do right, be fair to all the parties concerned, and overall to uphold the mandate and the reputation of the CHED. And the good sponsor is right. The alleged or the complaints investigated date back to September 2016. This decision of the CSC regional was reached in July, or it was promulgated in July of 2019. And just for my information, when was the commissioner appointed as commissioner of the CHED?
21. In 2021, Mr. President, Your Honor.
2021. And was the Office of the President aware of the CSC regional decision of July 2019?
Well, as Her Honor knows, wala tayong representative from the Office of the President now. Sana kanina yung PLLO. Tanungin natin.
Oo nga po. Timely action and timely questioning. So, and if the commissioner was appointed in 2021, then I should have asked this of the previous office of the president.
Correct, Mr. President,
not
yes.
the current office of the president. So, be that as it may, there is a standing decision of CSC Region 11, if I'm not mistaken, dating back to 2019. And if the commissioner was appointed in 2021, standing na po yung decision na ito ng CSC Region 11. At kahit inappeal nila at pending pa yung appeal sa CSC Central, so babalik talaga ako sa tanong, bakit in-entrust pa ni Chair ngayon, Chair noon, Chair ngayon, pareho naman po, bilang Chair designate sa governing boards ng more than 20 SUCs. Was it a wise decision? Considering na on appeal pa ang isang CSC decision about quite serious complaints.
Well, as the chairman previously said, number one is may appeal pa, and then number two is honoring his principal, which is the president, Mr. President. Clearly, Her Honor, clearly the chairman is recognizing these technicalities, and clearly Her Honor is pointing out that hanggang saan naman, di ba? Kasi kung may authority naman ang chairman to somehow limit the potential of this person from committing more erroneous acts, even if it's, or even if you don't assume that it's correct, but yun nga, in terms of preventive suspension or just not assuming that position, that's the position no, that is being forwarded by our Deputy Minority Floor Leader. And ako naman din po, with all due respect din sa decision so far, Chairman, I feel like sa tindi nung reports na narinig ko, kailangan malagay na sa tahimik tong issue na to, and to show the gravity, no, how seriously it's being taken. Sana hindi na nakarating sa Senate, kasi yun lagi ang request ko eh. Sana pag tinanong, na-action na natapos na. So yun din ang request ko.
Maraming salamat, good sponsor. And again, I join the good sponsor in that wish na sana sa bawat level natin, Chedman or tayo dito sa Senado. Kumbaga, we exhaust already all remedies given the mandate of each body, whether it's a commission or tayo dito sa Senate, we strive to do the same thing para hindi na kailangan kumbaga i-kick upstairs yung mga bagay na mas dapat pinagtutuunan na natin ng sapat at effective na pansin at our levels. Just a last follow-up question on this topic, good sponsor. Could we find out if the commissioner himself, Commissioner Libre, informed the president of the CSC case?
I doubt it. Trick question ho ba yun?
Hindi naman po, good sponsor. I understand why the good sponsor answered first in this way, that she doubts it kasi by human nature nga. Pero ano lang, a matter of fact lamang po kung in-inform nila.
In fairness, I probably would, para to save the, di ba? I mean, some people out of delicadeza will tell their principal na you should know po na baka malagay kayo sa alanganin. May mga ganun naman po sa sine, So, sa totoong buhay, di ko lang po alam.
This is an instance, good sponsor, na we wish that art would imitate life. Or that rather that the other way around, that life would imitate art. Opo. But so do we know if the good commissioner did inform the OP of the CSC case?
We don't know,
We
Mr.
don't
President. Oo.
Alright.
I just wanted to also put on record na sayang kasi yung budget ng civil service was yesterday. Baka gusto nyo pa-recall o patanong nyo sa chairman din nila kung anong balita sa kanilang decision. Not that we're intervening, di ba? We're not, to make it clear. Yung bang ano lang, how many days are they allowed to study, and then is that due? Is it due?
I will be very
In the
glad.
interest of seeing the
Opo.
wheels of justice
I will be very
turn.
glad, good sponsor, to communicate with the CSC chair about this particular case. Bagamat I confess, hindi ako mag-move para i-reconsider kasi ako po yung nag-sponsor sa budget nila. Pero I will thank you to the
I didn't even know
good-
that it was...
Opo. But thank you to the good sponsor for
That idea.
bringing up the idea, and I will act on it po, even by direct communication with the good chair, Nograles. So, what can we do, good sponsor, but leave this topic for now, pero at least na-air pa natin ng konti in terms of some important facts about it, and hopefully mabigyan ng points of reflection and future action yung CHED and the chair itself of the commission, with that sense of urgency that the good sponsor mentioned, that we hope we all have about this. Dako na po ako, good sponsor, sa paksa ng funding. So I'd like to bring the focus back to CHED's funds. I was made aware of the reasons behind the shortage of funds for new TES grantees in 2022. Bagamat ano po yung mga dahilan na kulang ang funding para sa mga bagong TES grantees noong 2021?
Ay, yung hindi na-transmit, no? Yun na, yung hindi na-transmit. Ay, wag. Oo, oo. I think this is a question for the chairman of the Committee on Finance. No, I'm just kidding. It's really just being able to allocate limited funding. The committee recommended, and the Committee on Finance was able to accommodate, I believe, as much as it could. And I don't know for a fact, but then there's also movements in the BICAM level, usually, Mr. President.
I recall good sponsor that during the process of the task force created by the chair, there were further explanations for insufficient test funds for new test grantees, though in 2022. At hindi ko pa sigurado kung ito rin yung mga naging dahilan nung 2021. Pero noon, 2022, in sum, ang nangyari daw ay yung bicameral conference took too much out of the proposed UACTE fund, which left CHED with insufficient funds for new test grantees. Kung ito man ay dahilan din noong 2021 o hindi, well, it's just important for us legislators to know what caused insufficient funding on any given year to ensure that in the future, so here we're talking about for 2024, there will be sufficient funds for more students to get the opportunity to pursue higher education through, among others, yung TES, which was created by the UACTE law or RA 10931 in 2016.
Kung baga yung test mo, kulang talaga.
Yung ano.
Mr. President, as I clarifying the actual figures, because I understand the situation, of course there's an increase in enrollment, but I accounted for that, and it's only like 5% plus, no? So that's not a huge amount. And one major change was the tulong dunong beneficiaries were moved to TES. So lumaki yung universe ni TES. So kailangan lumiit ang share, pero at that point wala, hindi pa, di ba? You maintain the 60,000 and 40,000. So actually, just to fast forward my answer, kaya ngayon ang balak ng CHED is liliit na ang TES to accommodate more students.
Alright. So, ang nangyari pala, kasi
Yeah. So,
yes.
So
good
for
sponsor.
just to give her honor the numbers, 237.6 thousand students were added to TES na dati recipient ng tulong dunong. Which accounts for about 3 billion pesos.
3 billion. I see. And of course, good sponsor, alam natin na both yung tertiary education subsidy at yung tulong-dunong program ay minamanage sa ilalim ng Unifast Board. At kasabay pa ng isa pang programa, yung Free Higher Education for Local Universities and Colleges, ay bumubuo ng kabuoang UACTE budget. So ang nangyari pala ay O yun, gaya ng sinabi ng good sponsors, may mga beneficiary ng isang programa inilipat at naging beneficiaries ng ibang programa at subsidy to the quite substantial magnitude of 3 billion pesos. So, ano ba to? Ibig pong sabihin ay at least that year, 2021, hindi kasing prioridad ang tulong-dunong program tulad sa TES? And does this change year on year? Or paano po ba ang prioritization ng CHED dito? Or in particular, ang ng Unifast board dito?
So, Mr. President, the difficulty faced by CHED is that there's a special provision that dictates that the tulong-dunong beneficiaries after their first year would be absorbed by the budget provided in Unifast, which is yung sa TES. TES basically. So, unless madagdagan din ang TES, they're constrained to spread out that fixed fund.
I see. So, hindi pala ito desisyon ng Unifast Board for year 2021, kundi that year, meron talagang 237.6 thousand students na papasok na sa second year of higher education nila. And by the action of the special provision, lumipat talaga sa TES.
Wala namang choice ang CHED kundi
Okay
ma-implement yun because the special provision is a law.
Yes. All right.
Hindi ho galing sa atin, to be clear.
Opo. I just don't have the date here when the tulong-dunong program was created, but TES in 2016, in the same year yung FHE for looks. Interesting din yung good sponsor, yung pag-dinrowing natin yung mga programa at subsidy na nasa ilalim ng Unifast Board, tapos in relation to CHED, na meron ding ibang mga subsidy programs sa ilalim nila pero hindi managed ng Unifast. So parang may overlap, may subset na somehow nasa intersection ng Unifast at CHED, meron ding part nung subsets na yon na discrete or distinct from each other. Although of course the chair of CHED is the chair of both the commission and the Unifast board. Dito pa rin good sponsor sa paksanong funding. In the previous budget hearing, Attorney Benitez Haro mentioned that they will implement the mechanism of ensuring that CHEDROS will not disburse funds to higher education institutions that do not provide their liquidation reports or simply disburse funds when there is incomplete documentation. So dahil mukhang recurring issue ito para sa CHED, may plano ba ang CHED na mag-enforce ng kung anong disciplinary mechanism sa ganitong mga aksyon ng mga CHEDRO?
Mr. President, I'm sure we can all understand that we set these rules so that the proper documentary requirements are submitted para requirement din po natin yan for transparency. So kung karamihan naman ng HEI nakakapag-submit tapos yung iba hindi, di kailangan mo naman talagang takutin, di ba? Na mag-submit naman kayo kasi magkakagulo-gulo lahat if they expect, and to be honest, Mr. President, this is also the issue we face sa DOH, PhilHealth, yung mga reimbursements, di ba? I mean, it's our duty naman. Any agency receiving funding, it's their duty to submit the proper documents to liquidate and so on and so forth. So yes, merong talagang, wala namang penalty. Pero, yun nga, ang masakit nun, kung wala kang ang penalty, di paano?
Yun na nga po, good sponsor. At ang magiging penalty de facto sa higher education institutions ay hindi sila madidisbursa ng pondo. Pero it takes at least two to commit a violation or even a crime, lalo na sa usapin ng misuse of public funds. So, doon naman po sa panig ng mga CHEDRO na either pinapayagan yung ganitong non-compliance ng
Yeah.
HEIs or sila mismo ay kumbaga accessory to the crime or accomplice or kung ano man, sila po ba may disciplinary action laban sa kanila on the part of CHED?
Sino po?
Yung CHEDROs.
So no, actually, so what's happening now is if there are SUCs that have not complied, HEIs, what is HEIs who have not complied, then the regional office is now the one who directly disburses the funding. So parang they step into the shoes na lang para lang makarating yung tulong. So gosh, I feel so bad, no? Because it's kind of like when you say you'll remove the accreditation of a hospital kasi they're also not complying. Tas sino kawawa? Pasyente. Sino kawawa? Estudyante.
Is there no case, a good sponsor, na non-compliant yung HEI, pero nag-disburse ba rin yung CHEDRO? In such cases, hindi lang yung HEI dapat ang may penalty o disciplinary action by having their funds not disbursed, kundi yung CHEDRO din, hindi ba dapat may disciplinary action din?
Si Chedro. To be clear, Mr. President, there are no COA findings pointing to CHEDRO being lax or committing any abuses or any wrongdoings, no. So talagang it's really the HEIs who are unable or have not submitted. And I don't know, maybe we can think creatively kasi nga ano ba yung, wala naman silang award na nakukuha yung HEI pag nag-submit silang on time. Because it's really the students who benefit and who are penalized in that sense. So, I don't know. Kayo dapat mag-isip kung anong award ang pwede niyong ibigay.
Thank you, good sponsor. Perhaps we can ask the CHED and particularly the chair about this at a later time as well. Pero kung commissioner nga ay narereklamuhan at nadedesisyonan tungkol sa non-compliance, baka posible rin sa antas ng mga CHEDRO. And it would be good perhaps for the CHED to think ahead about this. And speaking of COA, good sponsor, at the House of Representatives, there was an approved motion for CHED to undergo a special COA audit. Ito po bang special COA audit ay nagkaroon na po ng release ng report nun?
Okay. The audit was done, but wala pa hong results.
Kahit ang CHED, hindi pa po na-furnish ng COA ng resulta?
Ongoing.
Oh my gosh.
It's still ongoing. It's still ongoing. The special audit is ongoing.
All right. Still ongoing. At muli, good sponsor, may time frame ba na ibinigay ang COA sa CHED para asahan yung final special audit report?
Ang timeline is ASAP.
ASAP. Yes, good sponsor. So, paglabas po nung COA special audit na yon, maitatanong po ano yung mga main results, kung may in-identify ang COA na kailangan i-comply ng CHED, at paanong plano nila para mag-comply dun sa mga ide-demand ng COA. Dako po, good sponsor, sa mga tanong tungkol sa mga estudyante. So my office received a document, a copy of a document from DBM, which stated that CHED requested an additional 9 billion pesos for the 2023 budget to cover projected new grantees for tests. Yung katatalakay lang po natin, good sponsor. New grantees as well for the Tulong Dunong program and the FHE for looks. So those three main programs under the UNIFAST's management. Pero only 288.7 million pesos was given by DBM in consideration of the request. So parang 2.5% lang ba ito? Can the chair confirm this?
Ano yung question? Part of the budget or saan obligated? Do you know? Can you give us a date because the
Yes.
CHED cannot recall offhand?
Anong date ito? We don't have the exact date. I apologize, good sponsor. I don't have the exact date either.
Can you give us any other info because they cannot recall this with the information given?
For 2023 ba? Yeah, 2023 budget. Wala bang more specific details? Ito yung title niya. Tama ba? This is all we received. Well, all that we received, good sponsor, is it's entitled Commission on Higher Education, CHED, Fiscal Year 2023, Universal Access to Quality Tertiary Education, UWACTE Budget. Ganun lamang po.
Do you have a copy? Can we
I'll
have
have-
CHED
yes.
take a look at it? Okay, and then if we could proceed to the next question while they're reviewing it.
Okay. I'll ask the page to hand my copy. I'm sorry about a marginal note here to the good sponsor, but my office also sent a copy to the
So doon pa
executive
yun,
director.
oo.
To the executive director.
I think
of
we
CHED.
already have an answer.
Thank you.
If Her Honor recalls, when the agencies are made to submit their proposals, may Tier 1, Tier 2. So,
yes.
ang pagkaalala nila ngayon, that's the Tier 2.
Tier 2.
So, yun ang
see.
hindi na-approve.
At kaya ang napagbigyan lamang ay mga 2.5%. Now, according to that document my office received from DBM, it states that, quote, CHED did not submit details of the requested amount, which should have been the basis for evaluation. So, if that's correct, bakit po hindi nakapagbigay ng detalye ang CHED para sa requested amount?
Siguro at the time you prepared it, that's your backup. Ganun naman si Tier 2, no? Mr. President, normally when the proposals are prepared, that's obviously a few months or start of the year, no? So at that time, of course, they submitted Tier 1, which is the priority, and then it's usually parang backup plan po yung Tier 2. So at the time that the feedback was received, they had determined that they had enough sufficient funding, so they did not proceed with the for 2023, Your Honor.
I see. That's a bit surprising on the part of CHED considering na yung nirequesta nila ng additional 9 billion pesos, 9 billion pesos, kahit Tier 2 pa, ay para dun sa tatlong main programs sa ilalim ng management ng UNIFAST. And earlier na pag-usapan natin, good sponsor, yung naging kakulangan na nga ng funding in another year, 2022, para doon sa TES grantees na dahil pala nag-migrate yung a significant number of former tulong-dunong beneficiary. So kahit pa po Tier 2 yan, usually kapag tayo mga tao nagre-request tayo, we really make the strongest, we put forth the strongest argument for it. the good sponsor mentioned to reply to a different question, or maybe in a different plenary interpellation, that of course the funding is never sufficient. So sayang lang, no, kung paano na sinabing may sufficient funding na yung tatlong main programs na yon, when yun na nga in an earlier year nagkulang ng funding para sa test. Yun na nga po, lalo na dahil in 2021 and 2022, in fact, CHED had not sufficient funding but insufficient funds for new tests.
So actually,
Students.
to complete the picture, Mr. President, and I think Her Honor can if not agree with, can appreciate the scenario and the reality. Meron ng preset na fiscal space na binibigay, ay na-allot ang DBM sa lahat ng agency. So yung Tier 2, asa ka na lang kung aabot ka doon. So even in negotiations, they would really, you know, you're free to mention it, but the chances of it being given to you is really, really very small. So they end up focusing on what they can, Mr. President. Kasi parang nasabihan na rin sila na hindi nyo na rin makukuha yan. And this representation can attest, not on this particular case, because I don't know this case, but time and again, when we've also followed up na, ba't nasa Tier 2 lang to? Ba't hindi nyo na, bakit? Paano naging Tier 2 to? Napakahalaga. Kasi yun lang ang nabibigay na fiscal space.
Mas yun po ang maintindihan ko, good sponsor, kung ang DBM na, in a way, nag-set ng parameters para makapag-request ng additional funding, lalo na para sa Tier 2 programs. Kung sana nabigyan ang CHED ng mas maluwag-luwag na fiscal space ng DBM, or kung talagang kahit sinabihan sila, huwag kayo masyadong umasa, kung nag-submit pa rin sila ng mga necessary details, had really medyo mas nangulit pa, then possibly, there would have been many more deserving students to get the support they need to pursue
I would
higher
love to
education.
agree with Her Honor, because in principle I do, but from my experience chairing this budget for 5 years, suntok sa buwan po yun. But of course, I agree with Her Honor na go lang, di ba? Kung
Yes,
pwede mo naman
exactly.
talagang ipilit and i-prepare. I mean, but the amount of work that goes into that, I can just imagine at some point, you know, you choose your battles, and I would like to think may iba rin silang nahingi na ibang budgetary item.
Thank you, good sponsor. At tama rin sila na go lang, no, kahit suntok sa buwan, libre naman pong mangarap, lalo na kung nangangarap tayo para sa
Kabataan.
main programs na minamanage. Halimbawa ng
Gawin nyo na hong
UNICAS.
slogan yan, libre mangarap, lalo na kung ano yung pinaglalaban natin ng kabataan.
Okay. Sige. Go lang ako dyan, good sponsor. In the previous budget hearing, CHED mentioned that they had finished validating the grantees and found that 141,450 students were qualified to be given test grants from the years 2021 to 2022. Maaari po bang makakuha ng update kung yung mga test grants na yon ay na-disburse na?
For the 2023, no? What? Yung...
21, 22, 23.
Yeah. So, it is ongoing, Your Honor, and they are still in the process. You're paying out. Yes, Mr. President.
At para sa mga 141,000 plus na estudyante na to, test grantees para sa 2021 hanggang 2022, sa ongoing, nasa ilan na po tayo, or anong percentage na po nila ay na-payoutan na po?
Pero of the 141 nga, ilan na? As of November 6, yung 137. So, nandyan pa rin tayo.
This is the actual qualified grant.
So 137 na ang qualified. Mr. President, actually as of November 6, 2023, out of 191,000 applicants, 137,268 are qualified grantees and will receive payment Mr. President.
So mali pala yung figure ko, good sponsor. Ang sa akin, 141,450 students. So 137,000 plus lang pala ang
As of November 6.
as of November 6.
So November 3, ano na ngayon, 14?
November 16 na po.
16.
10 days
So
later.
baka 141 na.
Hari nawa po. And these are, kasi po ito yung mga estudyante qualified, validated, and found qualified for years 2021 to 2022 pa. So, kumpara sa gaan na piniplenary natin yon, this is two years backlog. So, of the, sige, kahit pag-usapan lang po natin yung figure as of November 6.
Just to be
Yes,
clear, it
Madam,
also includes
sponsor.
2022 and 2023. So,
Ah.
dalawang taon na backlog.
All right.
Tama?
So,
First SEM of 2021 to 2022 and second SEM of 2022 to 2023.
all right, good sponsor. So, siguradong 137,000 plus, posibleng 141,000 plus. Pero hindi lang pala para sa isang school year, para sa dalawang school year. Itong number
Yes.
lamang.
Yes.
All right. Sige po, kung kahit ano, gamitin natin yung figure as of November 6, 137,000 qualified, plus, 137,000 plus qualified sa dalawang school year na iyon. Ilan na po ang na-disbursan nung kanilang test grant or anong percentage nito ay na-disbursan na? Mr. President.
Ganun ba? Misaro and no. So, Mr. President, there's already a SARO, but there is no NCA yet. So, they are using whatever funds they can to make payments.
Ano po ang delay good sponsor sa pag-issue ng NDA?
NCA.
Kung may I'm sorry, NCA kung may SARO na.
I guess the answer is paperwork.
Paperwork, wow. For 2 years na po, di ba, na hinihintay ng mga estudyante nito, school years rather. At saka validated na ito ng CHED, deemed qualified na itong mga estudyante. Ano pong funds ang ginagamit nila para at least
Actually,
simulan
Mr.
na yung
President, to be
disbursement?
clear ha, yung
Opo.
SARO na-release na after nila mabigay ng name. So yung NCA, they're waiting for it. So it's not on the part of CHED.
Yes. So, pero at nabanggit ng good sponsor na gumagamit ang CHED ng ibang pondo niya para at least masimulan yung disbursement.
Yes.
So, sa ganitong paraan, ilan na pong mga test grantees for those 2 school years ang na-advancean na ng CHED?
They don't have it offhand, Your Honor. They heard Her Honor's request, so hanapin nila, pero they're being candid in saying they don't have it offhand. Pero pakihanap para kung lumabas to while we are still with our Deputy Minority Floor Leader, pwedeng i-produce, Mr. President.
Salamat, good sponsor. And actually, hindi ko naman request ito eh. In effect, i-request ito ng CHED dun sa dapat mag-i-issue ng NCA at para hindi na rin sila kailangan mag-advance nung ibang mga pondo nila. Lalo na sila mismo, ang CHED mismo ang nagsabing validated, qualified itong mga estudyante starting from 2 school years ago pa po. So, awaiting the update from CHED, a good sponsor, at salamat po para doon. Good sponsor, ang CHED po ba may record ng mga estudyante sa iba pang mga higher education subsidy programs na hindi pa nakatanggap ng full grants nila? Whether ito po ay yung FHE for looks, tulong-dunong program, kahit po yung CHED scholarship program, at iba pa.
Ibang program daw. So ano na lang ang kulang? Only 6%. Total of 6% from 2020, 21, 22, and 22, 6% na lang ang hindi pa. 5%. Oo. Actually, Mr. President, for the academic year of 2021 to 2022, 99.43% na ang bayad. So, less than 0.01 na lang ang hindi. And then 2022 to 2023, the total is 94.75%. So, 5.25% na lang ang hindi pa bayad.
At good sponsor, pag sinasabi nilang bayad na, fully paid or partially lamang po?
Fully paid.
Fully paid. So, at ito po ay across lahat ng mga higher education subsidy programs? Kasi yung sinasite po bang 99% ay fully paid in 2021 to 2022 at para naman sa 2022 to 2023, 94% ay paid. Ito po ba ay para sa UWACTE as a whole or
test grantees.
select programs? At
Continuing test grantees.
sa test po in particular. Okay po. Para dun naman po sa... Meron po bang hindi pa fully paid sa grants nila sa free FHE for looks or sa tulong-dunong program or sa CHED scholarship program at iba pa?
Okay, 96. Okay. Okay. So, for looks, Mr. President, the disbursement is 98%.
For both school years, good sponsor?
This is for 2022. For ano,
To
ano school year to?
2023.
22 to 23? 2022 to 2023.
And ganun din po ba yung record for tulong-dunong program at saka CHED scholarship program?
Yeah, so that is part of tests. So the information earlier on tests already includes that, Mr. President.
So yun pong 99% in 2021 to 2022 na fully paid, 94% in 2022 to 2023 ay hindi test lamang, kundi test, TDP at saka CHED scholarship program. Tama po ba?
Oh, iba pa yung sa CHED
Iba pa yung
scholarships.
CHED. So, but yung percentages na yun ay para sa dalawang programa, TES at saka tulong-dunong program.
Kasama ba tulong-dunong doon sa test? Kasama doon. Yes.
So thank you, good sponsor, Mr. President. Kumusta naman po yung sa CHED scholarship program?
Would Her Honor like to ask another question? Parang malayo pa yung pagkukunan nung
All right,
sagot.
I'll do that, good sponsor, Mr. President. At ang dulo naman ng line of questioning na ito ay, halimbawa, yung 1% lang na sinasabi nilang hindi pa nakatanggap ng full grant sa ilalim ng TES at TDP for 2021 to 2022. Yung 6% sa dalawang programang ito sa 2022 to 2023. At yung 2% na hindi pa nakatanggap ng full grant sa LUCS sa 2022 to 2023. Plus yung iniintay pa nating sa CHED scholarship program. Ilang mga estudyante ito per program in absolute numbers at ano ang plano ng CHED para siguruhin na matanggap na nila yung long-awaited funds?
Actually, since maliit lang yon,
Opo.
Mr. President,
The percentage.
can we ask them to submit that? Kasi maliit lang naman. Pero ano yung reason? Kasi yung isa, less than 1%. Baka, ewan ko, paperwork ba yun? Nawala ba yung estudyante? Di ko rin alam. Pero baka they can, Mr. President, since there's a few categories, I'll tell them to write it and then
Thank you,
submit.
good
Thank
sponsor,
you.
Mr. President. Para at least moving forward, alam natin kung kahit one-digit percentage lang to,
How many-
yung
how
absolute
many
number,
students,
malaman
yes.
opo natin
Oo,
ilan
oo.
para masuportahan natin sila at ang CHED no, na makumpleto na iyan.
Oo.
Salamat po, good sponsor. Still on the topic of students, may mechanism po ba sa loob ng CHED para mabigyang daan yung mga estudyante makapag-lodge ng anonymous complaints laban sa errant HEIs?
Kung meron ka sa website? Sa website nyo ba? Oo. Oo. Yes, alam ko na tanong na rin yan sa hearing. Baka kayo din po ang nagtanong, Deputy Minority Leader. Sa website ng CHED at saka mismo daw sa Facebook ni Chairman Popoy de Vera. Tandaan niyo po yun, sa Facebook. Pwede ko kayo magreklamo doon.
Alright.
Messenger.
At Messenger. Alright.
Tsaka sa? 888. Sa 888. Pwede din pala. 888.
Ito po ay hotline ng CHED, good sponsor.
It's
President. Just
lahat
the
ng klaseng
general-
complaints. Tapos
Alright.
napapadala sa inyo.
Alright. Salamat para sa impormasyong ito. Muli, kasi a common issue we've heard is that students fear that complaining against the school will result in the denial of grants to that school. And therefore, as the good sponsor mentioned earlier, Mr. President, ang estudyante naman sa huli ang either nabibiyayaan or napipinsalaan. And then, as a last question on the topic of students, good sponsor, Mr. President, in 2017, ang DepEd naman, DepEd issued a gender-responsive basic education policy or DepEd Order Number 032-17 to integrate the principles of gender equality, equity, and sensitivity in the provision and governance of basic education. Ang CHED po ba may similar policy para sa mga universidad sa ilalim ng kanyang jurisdiction?
They have, Mr. President.
Salamat, good sponsor. Dako na po ako sa mga tanong tungkol sa task force. Una po, good sponsor, Mr. President, I'd like to thank CHED and UNIFAST for creating a task force to investigate the various issues relating to the deficiencies in the various higher education subsidy programs. According to the task force report, the regional offices have a comprehensive and effective system of validating the list of grantees, and this is supposed to weed out ineligible grantees or even ghost scholars. Ito po bang mga mekanismo may kasamang punitive measures laban sa mga HEI na nagbibigay ng assistance sa ineligible grantees?
siyang catch-22 na hindi pa makaano. Yeah. If your honor, Mr. President will recall my example earlier, it's like penalizing a hospital. Yung pasyente dun sa lugar na yon, and in this case the students in the area, in that whether it's a city, a province, would suffer kung mapipinalize yung HEI. Pero siguro pwede yung workshop. Oo. Kung wala namang malis, ako wala akong problema, Mr. President, sa workshop, di ba? Your Honor, Deputy Minority Floor Leader, workshop, I totally agree. Pero kung may malis, I'm sure there's a criminal case that can, like kung may falsification of documents, may criminal case. Oh, wala naman silang kasong ganon. It's really just the delay, the inaction, just delays in filing the proper papers.
Salamat, good sponsor, Mr. President. Of course, yung deficiencies in implementing what are supposed to be higher education subsidy programs on the part of the HEIs, parusa na rin yan sa estudyante. And in the same way, yung pinagsimulan nating tanong tungkol sa mga maritime schools, sinabi mismo ng CHED na may posibilidad na isara yung ilan na hindi naman nagde-deliver ng quality education sa kanilang mga maritime students. So of course, taking into account the pain that the students may suffer, especially in the short term, kung mayroong disciplinary actions that CHED will take, kalaunan, hopefully sooner than later, ang outcome ay a better quality, timely delivery of these subsidy programs dun pa rin sa mga estudyante. And good sponsor, Mr. President, since the task force report has been approved, alin po sa mga rekomendasyon doon ay balak ng CHED at ng UNIFAST na i-adopt?
So, Mr. President, the report is done, pero it will still be officially submitted to the Commission and Bank. So, hindi pa nila masishare sa atin yan.
Alright. Salamat, good sponsor, Mr. President. May timeline po ba for the official submission para makapag-comment na ang CHED sa report na ito sa lahat nating mga stakeholders?
So next week, it will be presented to the Commission and Bank, and then December 14 to the UNIFAST Board.
Great, good sponsor, so Mr. President. So within the year, posible nang makapag-communicate ang CHED or sa publiko at makapag-comment sa report na ito. Pati sa mga rekomendasyon na i-adopt or posibleng i-adopt nila, and then maitatanong din eventually yung timeline para ipatupad yung mga rekomendasyon. Salamat, good sponsor. Huling paksa ko, ang kinabukasan ng CHED at ng UNIFAST, although I understand that CHED has limited administrative capacity to directly disburse to students, the task force na pinag-usapan lang natin ngayon, good sponsor, Mr. President, it brought to light the many vulnerabilities of fund disbursements through higher education institutions. Students are, quote-unquote, at the mercy of their HEIs to comply with the requirements of CHED. For example, higher education institutions are mandated to submit their liquidation report within 90 days of fund receipt to be eligible to receive subsequent funding for their students. During the task force process, it was made known that there was even an HEI that abused this. This particular HEI deducted beyond the 10,000 pesos allowed amount from student scholarships, which left them with a significantly reduced grant. Ang chair po ba ay naniniwala na ang pinakamabuting paraan na makapag-disburse ang CHED ng kanyang subsidies ay sa pamamagitan ng mga HEIs?
Well, it would also be extremely difficult if the disbursement would come from the regional offices. No, we can't assure that it would be better that way. So for now, it seems that the HEIs have to be relied upon. But as mentioned earlier, if there are problems which they have encountered, that's when the regional offices take over. So I guess there could really be a way for the regional offices to take a more active role if kunyari alam nyo na may delay, they get involved right away.
Salamat, good sponsor, Mr. President. And bukod dun sa, in a way, corrective action, stepping up, kung magka-problema man sa HEI, sa kanilang rehiyon, meron pa bang ibang avenues na ine-explore ng CHED or i-explore in the future para maiwasan yung ganitong mga vulnerabilities?
No, but Unifast state 1% ang admin. So, Mr. President, a practical solution according to CHED is to review the limit on their admin expense, which is at 1% based on the Unifast law. Other bodies like DepEd have 3%, Mr. President.
That's very instructive, good sponsor, Mr. President. And if the sponsor would lead our chamber in reviewing the relevant provisions in the law, then at least we have parang meron na tayong reference in another education institution of government of our country. Salamat, good sponsor, Mr. President. At sa huli, given the multitude of higher education subsidy deficiencies that CHED has been experiencing for years, ranging from unliquidated disbursements, insufficient documentation to support those disbursements, delayed releases, ang CHED po ba at ang Unifast may capacity at administrative resources para daanan yung mga necessary reforms para maisagawa ng matagumpay yung higher education subsidy programs?
Of course, yes, they do have the resources and the technical knowledge. They do. But just to clarify my response earlier, Mr. President, I mentioned that it was per Unifast. So the 1% limit is in the GAA.
Interesting. Good sponsor. So baka there may be an even more timely step that the chamber could take with the leadership of the good sponsor. So maraming salamat. Maraming salamat, good sponsor, at sa CHED family, and of course sa ating mga state universities and colleges. Maraming salamat, Mr. President.
Thank you very much to the Deputy Minority Leader.
Thank you to our Deputy Minority Leader. And last, to interpolate, is our chair, the Committee on Basic Education and Other Land, Senator Sherwin Gatchalian.
Thank you, Mr. President, and good evening to the body, good evening to the sponsor, and to Chair Popoy, and to the rest of the members of the SUCs and the CHED. Well, first of all, I would like to thank the good sponsor for accepting 3 out of our 5 recommendations, and the recommendations were derived from the budget hearing that the good sponsor, Her Honor, conducted in the past. And let me just put on record the recommendations that we made. Number 1, a special provision to ensure immediate release of free higher education payments to local universities and colleges. And I remember during one of our hearings, I think it was last year, some payments to the Valenzuela LUCs and as well as Taguig LUCs were not immediately paid. And I would like to thank Chair Popoy for making that commitment that these 2 LUCs will be paid, and also other LUCs. But to make sure that all LUCs will be immediately compensated or reimbursed with free higher education, we propose a special provision which Her Honor approved. The other special provision that we propose is to amend special provision number 1 to allow the use of not more than 30% of the current year's HEDF collection to fund eligible TES applicants who cannot be covered by existing year's GAA funding. And I remember also during the budget hearing that there's a backlog of TES applicants. In 1 year, I think it was here 2021-2022, the backlog went as high as 1.6 million students. No? So in other words, there are eligible students applying for tests, but due to funding constraint, these 1.6 million students were not accepted. So we're giving the CHED another venue by authorizing them to use the HEDF as a fund source for this new TES applicants. And the last approved provision is to amend special provision number 3 to address the crowding out of students from low-income household in the pool of TES beneficiaries. And this is to reverse the trend because let me just post on the slide. We saw that for TES grantees, the places where there is no SUKS and LUKS are slowly eating up into the share of the listahanan grantees. And it is clear in the law that there is a progressive application of the TES, starting with listahanan and then low-income families. And if you look at the slide, the red one is grantees from places with no SUKS and LUKS, and over time it is growing. And it's not exactly, those students who are part of the PNSL are not exactly low-income families as well as listahanan families. So we want to reverse the trend and stay true to the spirit of the law, wherein listahanan grantees will be prioritized, and then low-income families will be prioritized. And then if all of these grantees are given a chance to go to school, then the next step will be the places with no SUKS and LUKS. And we propose a special provision to that effect. And again, I thank the good sponsor for accepting that special provision. The other special provision, which was not
Mr.
accepted.
President,
Yes.
while His Honor is happy that in attributing to us the acceptance of those provisions, I wish I can say that it was this representation that accepted it, but it was the Finance Committee under our chairman. So yung susunod na sasabihin mo na hindi na-accept, siya rin yun.
Well, Mr. President, partially accepted naman, Ms. Sponsor. And this is actually a crucial special provision that we recommended. And this special provision, in a nutshell, authorizes the CHED to tap into the HEDF,
Yeah, exactly.
to use it for the shortfall for this coming school year 2024. Because based on the hearing, and again, this was called out of the hearing, the allocation for free higher education is 21 billion, but the requirement is 25 billion. So there's a 4.16 billion deficiency. And based on my conversation with various presidents of our SUKS, and also Dr. Tirso is here, that typically if the amounts given to the SUCs are not enough, they eat into the capex of our SUC. So meaning the monies that will be used to build laboratories, to build other facilities, will be used to fund that deficiency. So we looked at the HEDF, and the unused HEDF as of 2023 is about 6.8 billion pesos. So just enough to fund the deficiency for 2024. And good sponsor, this is only a stopgap measure. Senator Cheese, who's the chairman of the Higher Ed Committee, conducted the hearing on this, and he volunteered to put CHED, the SUCs, and DBM together to talk about to talk about ways forward, how to come up with accurate projections so that we will not have deficiencies. So this is only a stopgap measure coming 2024, and the proposal here is to come up with a special provision, again, to authorize CHED to use it into their HEDF. And lastly, Mr. Madam Chair, good sponsor is a proposal to fund the Philippine Energy Research and Policy Institute under the UP. And a few years ago, under we passed a law to create this Energy Institute, lodged under UP, and it's RA 1172. And this is this law created the Philippine Energy Research and Policy Institute. In 2023, this year, we allocated about 80 million pesos to operationalize this institute. And the intention of this institute is to tap into the knowledge base of the academe, the talent and the research capabilities of our academe to come up with analysis, researches on the energy sector here in our country. And we requested to fund it for 200 million pesos this coming 2024, and I appeal to the good sponsor and also to the chairman of the Finance Committee the possibility of funding this research institute. And we will send the good sponsor a letter to this effect, also stating possible fund sources so that the good sponsor will not will have options how to fund this 200 million. So these are just my manifestations to the body, and again, I thank the good sponsor for accepting our proposals, and I thank the CHED also for giving us information, especially during the budget hearing. So thank you very much.
Mr. President, a minute suspension.
Session suspended.